I almost didn't even record this, but we really had to talk about this chicken.
To the 200 people who have seen all my plates, thank you for appreciating me and seeing me and making me feel good because I almost gave up.
Guys, I'm getting ready for class and I just hit 200 subscribers on YouTube.
But even as America's newest superstar and sweetheart, I must take the train to class so life can go on.
I'm leaving my one class of the day, so now to the liquor store, but not for the reason that you think.
I want to make something special, so I needed wine to poach fruit.
Brief wine lesson. Why did I choose this port wine over this merlot? Well, when it comes to fruit and like pear and dessert stuff, normally I want to go with the dessert wine. And I feel like everyone kind of sleeps on dessert wine. No one ever buys it but me that I know. Yeah, this merlot would do the job too, but I'm going with the port because port's already pretty sweet and I could add in a little bit less sugar and it'll get really glossy and syrupy easier than it would with the merlot. And I don't know if you can read these words, but dessert wine makes sense for dessert. To me.
And now we're back from the grocery store and ready to go to battle.
Now, when it comes to poaching fruit, you can almost do it with any of your favorite fruits whatsoever, but I recommend that you use a harder fruit, so like a pear or an apple, but you can do it with bananas too as long as they're not too ripe. We're choosing a firmer fruit because we don't want the fruit to fall apart. We're trying to make a poached fruit, so we still want it to look like the fruit. We don't want it to be like a glob or like a mush or like a sauce. It'd just be weird and kind of defeat the entire purpose. I chose these two Basque pears, not because I necessarily like them more than any other pear in particular. These are just almost the apples when it comes to pears in the sense that these hold under heat really well without falling apart. So I just grabbed these two. And you want to make sure you don't pick any that are overly ripe. Now, when you go to the grocery store and you want to pick out a pear, a lot of people don't know how to actually pick one that's ripe or not ripe yet. With any pear ever, any pear you see in the store, you can just grab it and you kind of want to squeeze around the neck right here and see if it gives. If your thumb kind of feels like it's pressing, you know it's ripe. But if it's hard, you know it's underripe, which is why I picked this one, because it should hold pretty well when I put it on the heat.
Now this future video is where I got the rest. There's going to be a full video on how to break down a chicken in a few days on here. Trying to get this bottle open almost took my life. We were really trapped in a death match. So we're just going to put about 1.5 cups of that into our pot. We're just trying to make sure that our pears are covered so we don't have to flip them. I'm not going to cover mine all the way and I'm just going to flip them though because my shallower pot wasn't big enough to hold all of my pears. Getting your poaching liquid together is pretty much the same general concept as making a simmer pot, except we're doing this with the full intention of eating and not just smelling. And now that I got the wine in, I'm just going to go straight ahead and put in 2 lemon peels. But I couldn't get it to peel right, so I'm just going to scrape it the best I can with. I've been saving these cinnamon sticks for a special occasion, and I've had them for 6 months now, so we're just going to go in with 1. So now we're just going to let this simmer on the stove on 2 or 3, and we're going to go straight into cutting up our pears to go in there. So for me, I really only like cutting up my pears immediately before they go on the stove, because you know when you cook them in advance, they'll start to get really brown. I don't like that. I don't have any special tips when it comes to poaching pears or fruit, because honestly those are one of the easier things that I've done. But I do always recommend that you make sure you cut off your tops and your bottoms of the pears, so after they cook you can sit them up straight and present them however you want. And we're just going to go ahead and peel them too. I have a peeler now, but in my past, I just always used a knife. This is the first peeler that I've owned. In this moment, I can't help but wonder what it would be like for someone to peel off my skin and expose my emotional flesh. And now I'm just going to go ahead and cut mine in half so I can get out the seeds and the core. But a lot of people don't do that. Some people just poach them fully intact, but the seeds do get really bitter when you cook them. If you have an apple core, you could also just use your apple core, but my thing is, the chance of me ever buying an apple core as of right now are pretty low. I don't eat as many apples as I used to. If you're new here, I'm Amari. I just really like cooking and teaching other people, so welcome to my 200 subscriber special, and don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the rest of the videos. And now in our pears go. Mine aren't fully covered, so I am going to have to flip them over about halfway through. It kind of depends on your firmness to see when they're done. For me, it normally takes around 25 minutes max, but if your fruit are more ripe, it can take you like 4 or 5 minutes. But as soon as you can poke through your fruit with a knife easily, you know you want to go ahead and take it out before it starts mushing. To test them, you're quite literally just going to want to stab them with a knife. And look at that beautiful red, they were so good. But now we're going to go ahead and start on the mashed potatoes because someone asked me about those in the comments of my last video. For the mashed potatoes, I normally get Yukon Gold potatoes because those are easier to get creamy or just like any yellow potato. And I always try to chop everything into 3 even pieces, and then I chop those 3 pieces into 3 pieces because you want to have even and equal cubes, just so that when you're boiling your potatoes, all of them get cooked thoroughly at the same time. Now in you go, and we're going to make sure we start these in cold water. And it doesn't really take too much water to cook a potato, so we're just going to cover them slightly in water and salt them really well, because salt and potatoes kind of just go hand in hand like everything else. Once they slide right off of your fork or knife, you know it's time to go ahead and use them. For the chicken breast, this is going to be fairly simple. We're just going to want to make sure we pat our chicken and the skin dry as possible before we actually put it on any oil or try to fry it, because we want the skin to be crispy. You don't want it to be like pale and soggy. And because of the fact that I know I can just add on any seasoning I want later, I'm just going to go ahead and generously season this with salt and pepper instead of my normal Cajun seasoning. Now I'm just going to let this sit covered and get to room temperature. Now for the potatoes, I just use a fork when it comes to mashing them and making them all together. And this is just because when your potatoes are thoroughly cooked, you should really just need one utensil or a fork. And after those potatoes are really mashed up and kind of combined, I throw in about 1 tab of butter and I just stir it on in until it's fully melted and mixed in. And then after that's melted and mixed in, I just straight up add some salt and a splash of milk and we're good to go. I've been using coarse salt a lot lately just because it helps me eyeball how much is in there way better than using a fine salt. Now we're just going to go ahead and finish up that chicken too. Now my perfect life hack for making a good and crispy chicken breast is making sure your pot or pan is fully covered in your oil on the bottom before you turn it on. So I always do a cold start, which is where you lay it skin side down with the heat on medium, but you don't actually turn it on until it's in the pan on the eye. Then you need all of your willpower not to touch it for at least 7 minutes before you flip it over. I get really easily distracted and looked away and realized that my wine was done simmering. Now once you're done simmering that, just take out all of your lemon peels and cinnamon sticks, and when you can see that line down the middle and it holds a line on the back of a spoon, you know it's ready. Now for that chicken breast, I'm going to go ahead and flip it, but because I don't feel like standing there and I want to do dishes and a few other things, I'm just totally going to finish it in the oven on 375 for like 7 minutes. Now, I don't like taking chances when it comes to meat, so I think everyone should totally own a food thermometer. Anyway, I wish nice and crispy chicken breast upon all those who support me, so if you're new here, you better tap in. I'll see you guys later this week.